We know that about half the people who have whiplash recover reasonably quickly, but the other half doesn't. So there's many people who've got ongoing symptoms and restrictions in their life, including difficulty about getting back to work. So that's why the chronic whiplash guidelines have been drafted. Chronic means that you've had a whiplash injury and you're continuing to have symptoms for more than 3 months.
Welcome to PIEF 2024. I'm joined this afternoon with Professor Ian Cameron of the University of Sydney and Bronwyn Martin of CIRA. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Graham.
Now, you've just come off stage speaking about whiplash and how we can work better at that injury in terms of prevention and in terms of management. In the CTP scheme, whiplash claims account for quite a proportion of claims that we see. So this is obviously a much wanted initiative. Can you tell us a bit about that?
I'm happy to start. So as you said, there's a significant proportion of all claims in the CTP scheme which are for whiplash injuries. It's actually about a third of all claims. And while we do have whiplash guidelines currently, which Ian and the team have worked on previously, they are coming up to 10 years old now, and they have previously focused on acute whiplash only. So the work that we've been doing over the past little while, a couple of years, has been looking at all of the current evidence to update the guidelines, and that's to look at both acute and chronic whiplash. So definitely something, I think, in terms of the scheme, in terms of providing best practice recommendations to aid insurers in decision-making, to help clinicians make decisions about reasonable and necessary treatment for someone who has a whiplash injury.
And does that extend beyond that to reasonable work post-whiplash? Or is it considered too much of a short-term injury to warrant that sort of review?
Yeah, we know that about half the people who have whiplash recover reasonably quickly, but the other half doesn't. So there's many people who've got ongoing symptoms and restrictions in their life, including difficulty about getting back to work. So that's why the chronic whiplash guidelines have been drafted. Chronic means that you've had a whiplash injury and you're continuing to have symptoms for more than 3 months.
Mm-hmm. And what is the percentage of the chronic versus the more standard whiplash?
Well, about 50% of people with whiplash will end up with chronic whiplash. 50% will recover.
Is it a case where you may, if your treatment isn't appropriate, can it graduate from one category to the other? It can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the key messages from the revised guidelines is that you try and detect early after injury who's going to recover and who will have challenges in recovering. And the important thing is to offer different treatment for those who'll have challenges to recovery, but also don't overtreat people, in fact, who are going to recover well.
And what are the sort of outcomes CIRA is hoping to see as a result of implementing the guidelines and having the education available to those who are employers of people that are recovering from a whiplash injury, as well as, I guess, from the other side of that coin, the case managers that are supporting those who have had the injury?
So really what CIRA is trying to do is ensure that there's current best practice evidence available to support injured people in their recovery. And also it can be used by insurers as part of informing how they make decisions. It can be used for other people when they're considering how to best treat a whiplash injury. But I think it's really just about making sure that that person has access to the right treatment at the right time for the experience that they're having with their injury.
It sounds like the case manager interventions there to triage appropriately upon receipt of claim, and then managing the injury management, all that stakeholder involvement that sits around how that claim is to be treated is quite paramount, using the collateral that your research would provide.
Yeah, and the other good that we're trying to influence in implementation of the guidelines are health professionals.
Of course.
So to see that health professionals offer evidence-based, timely treatment,
Yes.
so that's also a key group that we're looking at.
And our core driver for all of these things is always going to be the person that is behind the injury and making sure that they're able to recover in the best, quickest way possible, because pain is pain and you want to shorten the life of it as much as you can. But there are cost benefits to this as well.
Potentially cost benefits, but just taking up the patient view. So educational materials are being formulated in terms of implementation of the guidelines. They are for patients, so patients can seek information about what's likely to help them individually, but also there's information available for health professionals.
And if there was a key message that you would like those who are exposed to the policies that you're hoping to have implemented, what would you have them take away, or how can they best access this information so that they can be proactive and really start doing their best to undertake these guidelines even before it becomes something that is a mandatory item?
So the guidelines will be clinical guidelines, so we won't necessarily be mandating compliance with these guidelines. One of the key messages I think is important is there is online information. There is an online tool available, and that can provide really good information for people with a whiplash injury. But there's also a component for clinicians and health practitioners. So that's the Whiplash Navigator, which is being developed by a group of experts who have also had input into the guidelines. And it's got a really good range of information and also questionnaire that injured people can complete and give them a bit of a guidance around what treatment they might access at what time.
That sounds wonderful. That's great. It's always handy to have something interactive that can speak to the patient directly to understand the nature of their pain, and then use that to provide the next step of what do we do now, rather than making any assumption around how they might be feeling, which is great. Professor Cameron and Bronwyn, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I hope you have a wonderful time at PIEF.
Thank you very much.